Today's guest is Chuck Hall. He's the Vice President of Finance and Strategy at Nastase Contracting. All right, Chuck, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, you're very welcome, Tats. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, I was really excited that I got introduced to you.
Yeah, likewise.
Perfect. Your background, you're a CFO, I guess, a finance strategy a person within exterior contracting business. Would that be kind of correct characterization?
Yeah, and I'm glad you characterized it exactly as that, Tats, because I always tell people, our company, a lot of our competition, they are roofers and siders that have a business. And our company, we are made up of business people that have chosen to work on exterior construction. And it is quite a differentiation I have found.
Yeah, it's interesting. What was your background before you got into this role?
Yeah, so I did, undergrad degree at the University of Nebraska, Omaha here. Did an accounting major, and then after I left school, I worked for a large construction company that Kiewit Construction. They're located out of here, and they're pretty much everywhere. Almost everyone that's in the construction field did a stint at Kiewit at least, or learned something from the leadership team there. My partner, his degree comes from the Peter Kiewit Institute of Engineering and Construction Management. So, so I worked for them for about 5 years. My last stint there, I was in the internal audit shop. I moved around quite a bit: accounts payable, receivable, payroll, in some different fields there on the shared services side. And then I was in internal audit. So, doing some financial controls over some of the larger, more high risk projects that they had working on. I left Kiewit though, and I was interested in more, finance proper roles. I wanted to do financial advising is what I thought I wanted to do, but what I realized is I just wanted to control my own destiny. And financial advising wasn't it. My brother-in-law, Nick Nastase, he had a construction company. They were just home remodeler, residential handyman kind of stuff. But he was interested in the multifamily boom that was starting to take place. It was like 2018, 2019. He dipped his toe into that and realized, hey, I could use some help as we try to take on more of these large scale projects that have a couple of commas in the contract value. It gets a little bit scary if you're not used to that.
So they're dealing with home repair, right? So four figure, five figure, maybe six figure, but you're trying to add an extra zero too, right? To it.
That's exactly right.
So someone that's has a great home repair or contracting business. I mean, what were kind of the steps of taking that business, which was a great business, and turning it into a business that would interface and get these larger scale projects?
Yeah, well, obviously I'll be biased in how I think it needed to happen, but financial controls, project controls. If you're going to do a project at scale that's going to take 9 months, how do you make sure that how you bid it matches how you performed it, and how you performed it matches the cost that you assumed it would take to perform it? And those things weren't in place, right? I mean, and that's most small scale construction companies don't have those things in place. They check the account at the end of the month, and if it is more than what they started with, that's great news. That means they're a real success. I really, and I got this jotted down like in my notebook. What I set out to do is I want to build a company that can be predictably profitable with people that I like, know, and trust, that I enjoy coming to work with. And that's the goal, right? Whether that's doing roofing, siding, gutters, shoveling snow, I don't care what it is. I wanted to come to build a business that would be predictably profitable, because that leads to so many other things. So the financial controls are a big piece of it. Different tools that we needed to put in place to track those things were a big piece of it. And then the people that we needed to be able to perform the work came to be a huge piece that I underestimated. I assumed, almost like treating people like widgets when it came into a business. And that's not how it is though. I mean, it's the people that you employ can make or break you, and the right ones will make sure that you are a success.
Sure. I mean, you on your website occupy a bunch of different areas, right? Residential roofing, commercial roofing. siding, wall systems. Is that expertise all in house, or do you have like project leaders or project managers that interface with subcontractors?
Yeah, so I always tell people in-house, we are a phenomenal pre-construction team. Phenomenal. As good as it gets. So on the estimating side, we're aces. On the setting a project up for success in-house, it's fantastic. We've got about 10 in-house installers. But we do rely on subcontracted labor for quite a bit of our work. Um, and it's just the nature of how construction goes. It's a seasonal business generally. So you have your peak 6 months, especially we're in Omaha, Nebraska. Today it's 12 degrees out and drizzling, sleeting. So it's difficult to have a staff. If I have 60 guys working, it makes it challenging to have 60 in-house guys in those January and February months. So we do have subcontracted labor that we lean on pretty heavily. But those people are supervised by our project executive team and our project managers that are all in-house. They understand our system, they understand our playbook, and make sure that those guys are being held to very high standards.
Yeah, I mean, I hear different sides of, should you be just in residential? Should you do siding? Should you do roof? What's your rationale on being in all those areas to be able to say yes to larger partners and be a solution provider? Or, I mean, what is your thought around tackling all those areas under your umbrella?
Yeah, so essentially the strategy is I have a commercial division, and that's almost exclusively new construction. And then I have my residential division that is almost exclusively remove and replace type of work. Now, the residential division will take on apartment complexes, is residential style, but my commercial division is doing the large scale new construction stuff, whether it's apartment complexes or mixed use buildings, 9-story buildings and things like that. That's what the commercial side is working on. The rationale there is we started the commercial division way later than the residential, and the commercial division is an incredibly slow growth trajectory, like just in terms of cash flow. My first year, when we were doing this, and let's say we do a couple $1,000,000, we never saw a nickel of profit on those jobs because they were generally making less than 10% net, and they were 10% retainage jobs. So we never saw the profit until, say, we started in 2019. The first profits we saw were 21, 22. So that was a long gap, right? So our residential is more quick hitter stuff that we can use as now we treat our residential customers like gold, but we use it as great training ground for salespeople, great training ground for labor, and great opportunity for trying new processes because you get a lot of repetitions. So if we want to implement a new process, we can do it on residential, do it on 7 houses in a month before we take it to our commercial projects and try that same process where it's going to take, we got to commit to a process for a 9-month project and it's going to be a long time for that feedback. So
Yeah, yeah,
it's
because if
one,
something's
a
not
cash
going
flow
right,
play. Sorry
yeah.
about that. Mhm.
Yeah, if something's not going right, basically, you see it at the other end, so it sounds like, a combination of, improving your processes, maybe negotiating your contracts differently, coming together on the commercial
Yeah.
side. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of benefits to it. I almost equate it to like, we have this commercial operation that's this giant, like a giant fishing boat, like a giant tanker, right? And it's really hard to move it. It's gonna just slow and steady. No, it's gonna pick up speed, but it's really hard to turn it. And in the meantime, I've got these little speedboats running all around it, and that's my residential, where I can try new things out and be very agile. And if I need to go in a different direction, let me take those little boats to test the waters, and if it's flush and it's a good idea, then we can start to angle that way.
It sounds like even your commercial side, you kind of step them up. It feels like just the way you're talking about it. Do you kind of categorize the size? Like, okay, well, maybe, this category of project we haven't done, so we have to fine tune it. Oh, we've done this 10 times. Oh, we can move the step up of size and not worry about the risk. Is that kind of a factor?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I can speak to that. We just started doing some really, really high-end materials, and it's like we always try to find like oh, cool, you want that project, and it's gonna be a $3 million bid? All right. Let me just real quick go talk to this guy that I know that owns a little strip mall, and I want to do an accent wall in his place, and I'm going to do it for like 2 grand. Let me do that first to make sure that this goes on the way I think it's going to go before I commit to this contract.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, for sure. Um, Great. I like it. I've heard sometimes like the commercial side leads to some lead gen for the residential side. The residential side leads to some leads to the commercial side. Do you have that dynamic in your business?
Yeah, yeah, we do. The commercial side has so right, if that's the big, tanker going along, there are so many things that just come flying off of that. Like, oh, site supervisor that we worked with on that job, he's got a hail claim on his residential roof. You know what? He likes you guys. He just wants you to go handle it. All right, it's a little $35,000 job. We'll go knock that out in 3 4 days and make a nice little margin on it too. But additionally, if we're working with a large general contractor and they're doing an entire apartment complex, a lot of times other apartment complexes they might have significant damage, right? A hailstorm, windstorm, whatever it might be, maybe a fire even. So then what they'll do is they'll call that general contractor and be like, "Hey, I need you to come fix this for me." Well, that general contractor is not going to go do that small repair. Small to them, but maybe it's $1 million re-roof. They're just going to say, "Call the roofer, call Nastase." That's who we would call. Call them. And so we've had a handful of projects that are, it used to be $20,000, $30,000 jobs that are coming off of this. Now it's $850,000 re-roof. That's got some asphalt shingles. It's also got a flat roof system. Also, since we're doing a flat roof system, it's a big old HVAC units that need replaced. So, and we'll facilitate that, and we basically serve as almost like the general contractor of that remove and replace operation.
Yeah, I guess if you're, some people say, focus on one side, but I guess maybe one of the pros is, I guess, sort of economy or external factors affect the residential side differently than the commercial side.
Yeah, yeah. Residential new construction is slowed down significantly in our area over the last 3 years, right? Builders that were doing 75 to 100 homes a year are now doing 30 to 50. But these same guys are involved in building apartment complexes. And so it's like, man, our workload is upticked significantly. Even though people are like, oh, you're in residential style construction, you guys must be hurting. No, actually, we're kind of thriving. And I do think that our piece of the pie is getting bigger as well, just as our name gets out there and we build a good reputation.
Yeah, I mean, you seem flexible with all that, which is great. You have the finance and strategy brain. What's the rough balance you think that works in terms of balancing the two sides out? Is there a point where one goes too far over one way than the other that you're worried about, or are you just kind of adjusting to market conditions?
Yeah, I'm not concerned about a balance in one way or another unless the commercial side is much more capital intensive. So if it sees a 50% decline, I cannot peel back very quickly. If it has a 50% increase, I'm confident that I can go collect the resources that I need to be able to do it. But I think that we could definitely double or triple on the commercial side and be okay. But if you cut us in half, it would be very detrimental to the entire organization, the entire operation, because I have aerial lifts and telehandlers and all of those things, and a lot of mouths to feed on that side. That if we saw a big downturn, I'd get pretty spooked pretty quickly.
Yeah, for sure. And then do you think about like your commercial clients and the industries they're in? Do is there any, I guess on the, you observe anything on the sales side that there's some strategy to diversify the industries or anything like that?
Yeah, definitely. So on multifamily is where we've lived for the last 5 years. Well, what do you think would happen, Tats, if single family homes started to have a big downturn and there's a bunch of labor that can technically do the installations on a commercial side, but they have nothing to do on residential? They would then flood the market, right? So what we have to be able to do is start to up the types of materials we're installing and increase our talent base of the types of guys that can do the installs so that we can do more high-end installs. more luxury items that may not be hard bid, multifamily, spreadsheet driven work where they're looking for the cheapest number. If you're in a hard bid situation looking for the cheapest number, it's just a race to see who's willing to go out of business for the sake of that hope that maybe they'll just extend their life. They're not going to extend their life. They're going to delay the inevitable, and eventually they'll go out of business. I
Right.
don't want to play in that game, even though we have for the last 5 years. We are now getting much more of a split of I won't say it's truly negotiated work, but it's more like, hey, we're going to use you guys because we have in the past, but this is a different type of client. We want to bring you along for the ride on this one. And sometimes that takes us outside of our geographic location, right? So right now we're in Omaha. We signed a contract in Kansas City. We've done a lot of work in Des Moines. These are all about 3 to 4 hours outside of Omaha. And we're even looked at some work outside of Denver, some work in Cheyenne, Wyoming, and some other work in some different unique places. And it's just because we have customers that like to work with us, and they happen to have an investment opportunity in another locale, so they call us.
Sure, absolutely. You said, some higher end stuff that's not as price sensitive. I mean, obviously, no one wants to compete on price, but sometimes it's fear, sometimes maybe it's positioning or whatnot. What's your kind of key things you think that uh, sort of a construction contracting firm has to get right to be able to have more work that's, call it higher end, or no, not the race to the bottom kind of situation? What do you need to do? What's the strategy?
Yeah, you have to have the expertise to be able to do a proper install. Obviously, that's kind of table stakes. You have to, though, you have to be willing to do some business development and ask those people. Okay, if I was like, I said, hey, I know that Tats has a pretty big, operation going on. He's building a lot of different properties that they look really sharp, and I sure would like to work with him. I have to be willing to call you and just let you know I sure would like to work for you. I think that we provide a great service. I think we can provide the products that you're looking for, and I think we can do it at a price that's within the range of tolerableness, but also provide you a service that is going to give you peace of mind and a worry-free experience that you're going to be confident in the end result. Um, so those relationships are extremely key. And so what we pride ourselves on, we tell everyone, we find we try to make sure that we are very easy to work with, but that does not mean that we are pushovers. I will stand my ground all day. I'll challenge owners even if they do push too hard and try to squeeze margins, because at the end of the day, I want to make money. I want my subcontractors to make money. I want my general contractors to make money, and I want the owners to make money on the things that they're building. And if we don't have all of those things in alignment, if someone's going to lose, it's very likely that everyone's going to lose.
Yeah, for sure. It's not always easy to find good subcontractors. How do you figure out who's good, and how do you qualify and manage your subcontracting partners?
Yeah, this is not a great answer in my most likely to the masses, but you have to sift a lot of sand. I found, and we are willing to hire fast and fire faster for that reason. We vet everyone, we interview, we make sure that they can do good work. We usually start them on a new construction residential that even if they do a poor job, the expense of tearing it off and putting it back on, which we do when it's not done right, we will tear it off and put it back on. When that expense is maybe two, three, $4,000 in materials, rather than hey, get them onto an apartment and we have to tear it off and put it back on, and it's going to be 20, 30, $40,000 in materials. So that's a big part of it. And then also attracting the right guys is one thing, keeping the good ones is another. And we do a fantastic job of keeping the good ones. I've got three three subcontractor crews, and they each have about 10 guys that they I would be shocked if they're doing work for others at this point because we take such good care of them,
What do you
right?
do? What do you do that is above and beyond, you think?
Well, I generally don't have any retainage associated with their payments. I pay them every single Friday, even when we're not getting paid, even when things are tight. I make sure that they are paid, and we treat them as if they are a part of our team. I want them wearing our gear. I want them coming to our, our quarterly cookouts. I want them to bring their family to our place. I want them to, we have kind of a nice golf simulator in our shop. I want them to play on the golf simulator. I want them to know that, yeah, I coach my son in flag football and we won a championship, and I want them to say, "Hey, we're proud of you because I know you worked hard on that." It is that Nick, the owner, Nastase, he's always prided himself on having a family business, and I'm always like, "Hey, it's not always a family business because you don't fire your family, but we treat people like family, as best we can."
Yes. Yes, whose idea was it to have the golf simulator?
Well, it was all, I mean, it's such a no-brainer, it's kind of all of our idea, but no, that was a dream we had. We built a big, pretty decent-sized warehouse, and, it has 20-foot ceilings, and I was like, "Man, we could do an upper mezzanine with a golf simulator," and he said, "Alright, one day." So we said if we hit a certain financial goal and our business achieves a certain goal, that we would do it, and we did, achieve that goal last year and got the simulator installed for Christmas of '24.
Spoken as a finance person because you didn't just go and buy it. You did the math and you said, "Is it, when does it make sense, and when am I gonna have still have contingency and not gonna break the bank and do it?" That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Do you have other incentives and things like milestone goals that you set attached to anything fun or anything like that?
Well, we haven't attached the "if this, then this," but there's an "if this," right? And we probably need to grow our revenue by about 2x to justify, moving into a new space. We own our building right now, but we will outgrow it if we grow by about 2x from where we're at today. And when that happens, we'll need to go purchase. So I need to buy land and then build a building on it. And that's a really the next big one. And that'll be really cool when it happens, but also terrifying because I'm pretty risk averse in a lot of ways.
Yes, yes.
But it's necessary.
I was gonna ask you, like, a lot of people say they wanna go 2x, but they don't necessarily know what's involved. What goes through your mind in terms of requirement and, you know, caution and strategy to 2x?
Yeah. About a million things. About a million things go through my mind, Tats. But the main thing is, if now that we have really strong job costing, and we have really good people in place, and we have people with broad shoulders that we can stack a lot of stuff on, and we incentivize them. Most of our guys that are in project executive roles, they participate in the successes of the business just as if they were owners. In fact, better because they don't have the risk if it goes belly up. Um, but the things that go through my head are, I know we can do it, and I know that if it's not us, it's going to be somebody else. And that's the hard part, right? I know what growth is going to take, and I know what it will require, but I also know if we don't do it, someone else is going to, and I don't believe that someone else is as talented as us to do it. So it's a hard part. It is, whenever with we have a great responsibility because we're very talented, and so it is our responsibility to capture this opportunity. And knowing that, it doesn't leave you much choice.
Right. Sounds like, with your sports interests, mindset's a big part of it.
Definitely, definitely.
Perfect. No, I love all the stuff you're sharing. Thank you. Is there anything I didn't cover that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I don't know. I think we covered a lot here, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. And I think I think that there's a something in the industry right now, from the owner to general contractor to subcontractor, the relationship piece of thing, that it really needs to flip. I think that there's a lot of hard bid environment that's happening because there's conglomerate investors, right? These syndicated deals. It's great. It's great that you or I could just easily throw some money into a deal and be able to participate as if we're owners. That's great, but it does lose a personal connection to it. There's a lack of pride of ownership that gets involved with that, and I think with that comes a race to the bottom environment. I can't tell you how many of my competitors have gone out of business in the 5 years we've been doing this. It's insane. And I think that it starts at the owner GC relationship level, where if they could get on the same page that, hey, we want everyone to be successful. I understand that there was a low bid, but we have to have some integrity with the bids we're taking. We have to make sure that these are vetted contractors that are doing the work. There's very few barriers to entry to get into this industry, but it takes the adult in the room to say, listen, we're going to put our foot down. It might cost a little bit more, but we know we're going to have a good product at the end, and we're not going to be putting people out of business while we do it. I think if people would take that to heart, and anyone that listens to your podcast, if they start to think in those terms, I think if they had to ask themselves honestly, they would say, yeah, we've definitely been a part of projects that occurs. And I think if we could change that in the industry, it would be good for everybody.